Hello, everybody, and welcome back to EV The World. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joel Knott, and today I want to talk to you as a little bit of a warning video for those of you who are interested in going down the in-wheel motor EV route for a conversion. It's something that we've been working towards for the last few months, and well, it has been ridiculously frustrating going down this route. And even if you're not looking at going down the in-wheel motor route, it's a good lesson for the EV industry at the moment, what's going on. But I'd like to just give a little bit of background as to what we were looking at and why we were going down this route. So we have a workshop vehicle. It's a Nissan Cube. We've owned this vehicle for years. It's a great car. Some people say they're ugly as sin. I like them, but that's just me. But basically this Cube is, look, it's great, but along the way, we've put, I'd say, 2 engines in it in the time. They're notorious for blowing head gaskets. They're a bit of a pain, and this one's now developed an automatic transmission shifting problem. So we're like, all right, perfect. Now is the perfect time to do an EV conversion on it. So first thing we did, pop it up on the hoist. We're like, okay, let's have a bit of a look around. Let's see what space is available for what we want to do. We wanted to get a little bit colorful with the conversion, if you like. So we were looking down the route of, well, what can we do that we could make this rear-wheel drive? There's not a lot of space at the rear of it, spare wheel, etc. Of course, it's a front-wheel drive vehicle, so the only thing it's got across the back is a beam rear end. And of course the engine up front. So we started looking and we're like, oh, do we put a Tesla small motor up the front, make it front-wheel drive? And then we came across in-wheel motors. Now, it was something that we'd seen from back at SEMA in 2019, I think. SEMA in Las Vegas, for those of you who don't know. Great show. Definitely should go to that. And there was this company called Orbis, O-R-B-I-S, that were doing an in-wheel motor. And I hadn't thought much about it since that time. But then after looking at the packaging problems that we had with the Nissan Cube, well, I was thinking, okay, this is the most elegant solution you could go down. Because when you think about it, from an EV conversion perspective, the lighter and smaller the vehicle, the better it is. I mean, it's almost a double-edged sword when it comes to EV swaps, where you would like a vehicle that's bigger, but bigger means heavier. Heavier means more batteries means heavier. It's just like, it becomes this compounding issue. So we were looking at something, look, as I said, it's a workshop vehicle, so we only wanted a really small pack. I mean, maybe 20 kilowatt hours, maybe 30 kilowatt, just something small to be able to get us a little bit of range. We wanted maybe 60 miles of range, 100 kilometers, nothing more than that. Maybe more if we get it from space issues, but we don't drive this vehicle very far. It is quite literally just our runaround vehicle for local pickups. So again, we started looking down the in-wheel motor route. Suddenly this became a really elegant solution for the possibilities, and the possibilities really, in theory, on paper, are fabulous when you think about it. So firstly, we were like, okay, let's go down the route of rear-wheel drive. So basically what we saw on offer, and I'm going to say on offer because we'll get to the frustration point of this whole in-wheel motor journey. But what we saw on offer were basically in-wheel motors that were ranging between the 70 kilowatts to 100 kilowatts per wheel motor. So we were looking at it thinking, okay, well, I wanted to make it rear-wheel drive, so let's put let's just call it the 100 kilowatt motors for argument's sake. If we put 2 of those on the back of a Nissan Cube weighs about 2,000 pounds, just a little bit under 1,000 kilos, maybe just a bit over 1,000 kilos. But either way, let's just work on the 1,000 kilos, 2,200 pound mark. We were thinking, okay, 200 kilowatts, that's pretty good for the rear wheels. It's enough. Of course, we're taking the engine out, so that's all we're going to have. But it's enough, you know. I know if, EV fanboys are going to be like, oh my God, you need way more than that. We need 700 kilowatts, 800 kilowatts minimum. But really, I mean, for something like that, 200 kilowatts is going to be more than enough. But of course, it gets tempting. You start thinking to yourself, well, if I do 2 rear-wheel motors, why don't I do 2 front-wheel motors as well? Now, the front-wheel motors, in theory, were, and this is all past tense, again, I'm getting to the frustration point, the two front wheel motors were definitely looking to be a little bit more difficult. Now, to explain for anyone who doesn't know what an in-wheel motor is, an in-wheel motor is basically like a big drum brake. It looks like a huge, fits inside roughly an 18-inch wheel, but a really large drum brake. Of course, inside it has its braking and motor, and everything's inside it. It's one package, but it does look like a rather large drum brake. Now, when we were looking at doing that to the front end of the Cube, it was a little bit tricky because the offsets were going to be a bit of an issue. It was really starting to look like it was going to bring the front wheel offsets out way too wide because the in-wheel motor, that looks like a drum, is quite wide. So when we were looking at it at the back was an option because it just has the beam rear end, and we can modify that beam, bring the in-wheel motor a little bit further inboard, and it gives us our clearance needed. But of course, the reason we were starting to look down the front, this is what I was going to start getting at, looking down the route of putting two on the front as well, because it became very tempting. All of a sudden, you're like, wow, okay, 400 kilowatts, all-wheel drive. You could nearly even set it up like a tank if you wanted, so you could do like amazing donuts on the spot, because if you think about it, like you could drive two wheels forwards on one side, two wheels backwards, and you're basically doing these on-the-spot donuts. All these things suddenly became like, wow, this is an excellent route to go down. It was getting really exciting until we started reaching out to the companies that sell in-wheel motors. Now, I'm using all these air quotes. I'm sorry about that, because this is the frustration point. So, the company we saw, like I said, at SEMA was Orbis. So they were the first people we reached out to. Reached out, didn't hear anything. Okay, we'll try again. We reached out again, a couple of weeks later, nothing. Started delving down a little bit further and looking at their Facebook page and everything else, and realizing these guys haven't posted anything forever. And I just don't even know if they're even in business anymore. They don't respond to anything. They don't respond to DMs, emails, anything. So we kind of went, okay, Orbis Wheel, maybe they're not in business anymore. They did seem like a fairly small company, although their product was fabulous. And please, if for someone from Orbis Wheels watching this right now, reach out. We're very interested to do something with you. We haven't given up on the in-wheel motor route, but we are a little frustrated by it. Anyway, so if anyone from Orbis, please. All right, I'll get off my high horse. So then we thought, okay, there were two other companies that were interesting. One that I'd actually seen a couple of videos on, Protein Electric, Protean, so not like protein that we eat. Protein Electric. Based out of England, it seemed, although they did look like they had their manufacturing in China. I thought they were going to be a very interesting company to reach out to. I'd seen a video on Munro and Associates about the in-wheel motors that they put into like a Mercedes-Benz estate. I can't remember the model of Mercedes, but it was a bigger vehicle, like an E-Class, I think, E-Class estate. So I thought, okay, this is really interesting. This is actually a company who isn't just doing a display. They've got something that's a viable product, if you like. So kind of the same thing again. Reached out to them, didn't reply. Tried other routes rather than just email. This time around, I kind of revisited our email. I reread the one that I'd sent to Orbis, and I thought, okay, I'll give a little bit more detail. Basically, that we didn't need any after-sales service. Like, if you just sent us something, we'll take care of it. We don't need you to hold our hand through the entire process. But again, no reply. So, very frustrating. So then, our last option, and I say our last option, if you Google in-wheel motors, you'll see some like AliExpress and things like that options, the sort of $500 in-wheel motors. That wasn't the route we were looking at. We had a really good budget to do. We still have a really good budget to do this project. So we were looking into the tens of thousands, potentially even per wheel motor. It was something we really wanted to try because we know that, economies of scale, things will get cheaper in the future. But for right now, if it was a new product, we were happy to spend the money. We still are happy to spend the money. But we know that eventually this could become, and this is what we wanted to try, this could become a really interesting EV conversion. Because when you think about packaging of EV conversions, it's really tricky. No matter the size of the vehicle, where to put your motors, where to put your batteries, like those two major components in the EV swap are actually really hard to package when you put some real time into thinking about it. So basically we were looking at for the Cube we were looking at the in-wheel motors to go where the original, in this case on the Cube, drum brakes were at the back, removing the engine from the front and basically putting all the batteries in the front of the vehicle. Of course, there's a lot of other components, but I'm just saying the two major space components. That's where we were kind of looking at to take the engine out and put the batteries up front. Again, because we didn't need too much space to be able to, or too much space to be able to put too many batteries, because we didn't need the huge amount of range that a lot of OEM EVs are built with. So, and which a lot of people don't anyway. I mean, you think about it. I know there's a lot of range anxiety out there and people want 500 miles and 1,000 miles and everything in regards to distance. But if we're talking about little city cars, they don't need that much distance, really. I mean, I don't know I should know the statistic, but I think most people drive somewhere around that 40 kilometer, 25 mile roughly range per day is the kind of, there's a huge population that only drive that sort of distance. Maybe that's one way. Maybe it's like an 80 kilometer, 50 mile return. But either way, it's not a big distance. So anyway, the final company, there were only really 3 companies that we were looking at because they were the only 3 that had a viable product. And that was, again, Orbis, then Protein, and finally, Elafe. Now, they were not my original first choice because over Protein. So it was really in the order. We did email them in order of what our choices were. We liked Orbis because, well, basically because we'd seen it, touched it, felt it. You know, that was sort of our first route. Then, of course, what was it called? The in-wheel motors from Protein, because I'd seen some videos and we'd seen some videos on them. But then Elafe, I knew nothing about this company. I think they're a Czech-based company in Europe. I'm not sure exactly. But we sent an email to them. I basically sent the email to them that I sent to Protein Electric as well. And they replied. And I was like so ecstatic when I saw a reply. And what a reply it was as well. But didn't help with my frustration, because basically in a nutshell, and I can read some excerpts from it, but basically in a nutshell, they said, all we're interested in is dealing with OEMs at this point in time, which I get. I do get that. But I do wonder sometimes that if you can't support the aftermarket, you know, if you build it, he will come kind of thing, a bit of Field of Dreams. If you build a product that can get out there, then maybe it would interest more OEMs. But anyway, apparently they're dealing with OEMs. Basically, I'll read the end of the email. It says, as much as we'd like to support automotive enthusiasts around the world, that would make around the world to, gee whiz, sorry. As much as we would like to support automotive enthusiasts around, I'm sure it's supposed to say the world, but it says to world, that would like to introduce in-wheel motor technologies to ICE vehicles, the reality is that such technology is suited the most to new EV platforms, where its direct benefits such as packaging, efficiency, individual wheel control, etc., can unlock design freedom to an OEM, which in result are able to deliver software-defined vehicles with the highest possible of energy efficiency. User-focused design is a bit of a generic email he wrote back, but still nice that they wrote back. Driving dynamics and so on. The funniest part with this reply was, I read it and thought, this is exactly the product that works for the aftermarket though. Like, I can't understand how they can say that it's more suited to OEMs when their description is exactly what the aftermarket needs to be able to convert vehicles because of the packaging solutions. It is problematic. Like, if you think about it, if you could take most ICE-engined cars, internal combustion engine cars, most ICE cars, and rip out the engine, put your battery packs in that area, and put in-wheel motors into the original packaged area, that is, in my opinion, the most elegant solution and simple solution you can do. So that's where we're at. Look, I'm still open to the in-wheel motors, and if anyone knows any other companies that at least producing something for the aftermarket that are willing to sell something to the aftermarket. Again, not coming in with a tightwad budget, like really wanting to do this because we want to build a relationship so we can do more of these conversions going forward. But it's also a warning to everybody that in-wheel motors, if you're really planning a conversion down that route, be careful, because let's not go too far into it, because you're probably not going to be able to buy something at this point in time. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it. We're putting together a different EV conversion as well. We're looking to do something Tesla powered soon, so I hope to bring you something there hopefully soon if it all comes together. Yeah, and thank you so much for watching. Look forward to bringing you more content. We've been a bit busy lately. We've just picked up a new work contract, so it's been a little bit hard to jump on and record videos, but we do look forward to putting some more content together soon, some more interesting content, rather than just rants about in-wheel motors. So thank you again, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.